changed this game
Uh-huh.
so much for guys like us, like me coming from behind, for Todd Pletcher, for Steve Asmussen. It revolutionized everything that we do and changed everything that we do. He was the first guy. I mean, Jack Vanberg had a big stable, but he's the first guy to have the big, high class, high powered stables all over the country to fly around on a regular basis. And for your owners not to think that you're crazy when you call them up and say, I want to spend $5,000 flying, because if you didn't, you didn't beat him. D. Wayne off the plane. That was the old saying.
You know, the thing, Dale, we started thinking about that. We thought not everybody's going to play in the NBA, not everybody's going to play in the NFL. So here were most of the guys, when I first came around in the 70s, late 70s, most guys were like Whittingham and Woody and some of those great trainers, Lasbury, were sitting there with 25 or 30 horses. They loved about 5 or 6 or 7 of them because they fit Santa Anita or they fit Belmont. Then what happened, the other 10 or 15 were just there. You know, they
wasting
tried to
time.
wasting time, trying to eating up the feed bill and trying to make something work. So we decided that we would take the ones that fit Santa Anita and run them there, the ones that fit Belmont, run them there, the ones that didn't would go to Omaha when they were running, or Monmouth Park. And so we tried to make every horse useful and hit those smaller stakes, and a lot of good things happened.
You did a good job of it. But I remember as a kid, and it was we were just trying to figure out what year it was, but it had to be like 82, 83. But growing up on the backside of Churchill Downs, if you had a 20-horse stable, you had a big stable. But it was like, you know, people's bandages hanging from the rafters, and
Looked like a Chinese
looked
laundry.
like Chinese laundry around there and stuff. And then word came, Wayne Lukas is bringing a stable to Churchill Downs. And Tom Meeker had just taken over, and simulcasting had just taken over. And Churchill at that time had been a very small blip on the map other than Derby Week. And now we hear Wayne Lukas is coming. Everybody starts to get intimidated immediately. And he rolls in there with those big shiny vans, puts those big webbings up, those big screens. The horses are bedded this deep. I didn't see any problem with being bedded on dirt. Now he all of a sudden bedding them this deep. The whole game changed on the backside of Churchill Downs. And us younger guys got to see that and see what could be done and what should be done and how your horses should be treated. And it was a change. It revolutionized Kentucky racing. And then all of a sudden, other big stables came in, but it was a difficult time because there had been guys that had been there for a long time that couldn't compete anymore and had to leave. But he single-handedly, in my opinion, made Churchill important in horse racing. And it was a big deal that Wayne was coming. Was that year you brought Castillejo and you had to put him outside and all that stuff? But you had everything was perfect. Why do you have to get at 4:30 in the morning? I don't know. But everything was perfect.
3:30.
Everything was perfect. And it when one boat rises, they all rise.
Well,
And it made us all better trainers, made us all better at taking care of our business. And to this day, Churchill does not look like it did.
Well, when we went into Santa Anita, we put the flowers out and did all the things you're talking about. And Willard Proctor, who is, pretty black and white and would say what he thinks, he rode up and stood there and looked it all over. And he said, I don't know if this son of a bitch can train, but he sure can garden.
and I enjoyed it as a kid. I mean, I was probably 8th grade and freshman in high school. When I got my driver's license at 16, I would ride by his barn and just sit in my car and look at it. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, the pool table, shed row, the big hay bags, the straw this deep, the horses were so beautiful and shiny.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want to do that. One of these days, I'm going to be able to afford to do that.
But Dale, you guys are doing it now. It's marketing. We thought we could win races, but we thought that the marketing aspect was good, and we should do it. We should try to get Dale Romans or anybody else, a potential client, to park his car out there and say, "Who the hell is that?" And we took that philosophy to a level, to try to. But you got to win. You still got to win.
Marketing gets you so far. The rest of the way, you have to win the race.
Then you better predict
at the same time. Where does that come from, though, Wayne? You got a master's degree in education. You've been a horseman the entire time as well. Is that the balance that help make you so successful?
Yeah, I
from the
think
beginning?
the balance probably comes from the coaching career a little bit, Joe. What happened? I was training horses in the summer and coaching at the same time and teaching. And with coaching, you really get to organizing it depending on your assistants and so forth a lot more than people realize. The Lou Sabins of the world and the John Capillaris and like that, believe me, they get into a point where they are having to depend on those assistants. So I started trying to develop those assistants, which now are doing very well around the country. But we got that high organization so that we could do some of the things Dale's talking about and yet not lose the quality of what we were trying to do in the horsemanship side.
Talking about this first, I want you to tell a story in a second. I've told Wayne all along that, he's known by the sunglasses, he's known by the fancy suits, he's known by always being pristine and perfect. But people don't know him as the horseman that he is.
Right.
This is one of the best horsemen to ever step foot on a backside, and which leads to a story of us going to Indiana Downs one night, and we had we were both racing at Keeneland, and we both had horses in at Hoosier Park in the Indiana Derby, which ran about midnight Eastern time.
Right.
And it was a cold, drizzly October day in the middle of the cornfield. Of course, we fly in there in a little plane. We go Wayne style. We go Lukas style. We're flying in the little plane, and I love to hang out with him because you're going to do everything at the highest level. So we fly in there in the little plane. The limousine's sitting there waiting on us. He's got his fancy suit on. We go over to Hoosier Park, and we're literally in the middle of a cornfield with a drizzling rain that's cold. And my horse runs terrible. And Wayne said, "Let's go to the plane." I said, No, I got to go check him. So we drive around to the receiving barn on the backside, mud everywhere. And as I jump out of the limousine, I see this older couple, and they're trying to load a filly. And you can tell they've been there forever because she's soaking wet. She's got hair on her this
All
long.
lathered up.
The truck and trailer is probably not worth $500. And I blow right past them going in and check my horse. When I come out, Wayne, in all that garb, in the rain, in the cold, is adjusting the halter on the filly, adjusting the shank. Gave her about 3 or 4 laps, straight on the trailer. And those people's face dropped, and they said, "Oh my, Mr. Lukas, we never thought we'd ever see you in person, much less have you in our truck."
That's like the scene out of a movie.
It is like a scene out of a movie. Yeah. But we get back into the limo, and he elbowed me and looked over and said, "They were looking her in the eye. You can't do that." But Tammy was sitting in the limo with him before that, and she said he was getting more nervous and more jittery the more he saw them pull on him. And he said, "I can't take it." He got out and put that filly in the van. So all that other stuff that goes along with the marketing, like you said, you got to win. He's still. There's two of them that are the greatest in my opinion. That's he and Bob Baffert, and they just can do anything with a racehorse. Is the story true about the yearling sale? The guy couldn't show the yearling to you. The horse was acting up too bad, and you said, "Give him to me," and you took him a few laps, and all of a sudden you just dropped.
Yeah, that was at Keeneland. That was at TaylorMade. They have pictures of it, and actually the Japanese were over there in a group, and they all got cameras. So this thing was trying to turn over. He'd take it down on the end, and it rearing up, and they like to try to flop over and things. So I said, "Well, just if you don't mind, just let me school on this thing a little bit." So I schooled it a little bit, and then walked it out there and stood it in the middle with everybody around, dropped the shank, and went over and sat on the wall, and left him stand there for about 10 minutes. It was funny.
I want history to know the horsemanship.
If you talk to people on the backstretch, they all know.
Everybody
they
knows.
Experience
Everybody
it every
knows.
day.
You watch him ride, 80 years old, and watch him ride his quarter horse.
Right.
And there's not a better rider out there.
No, my wife's better.
Is she?
Yeah, she's better.
Yeah. But he is such a phenomenal horseman. People don't realize he bought, we can say he won all this, he did that. He picked them out.
Right.
And it started out without a lot of money involved.
Of our 49 world champions, which gets the quarter horses and the thoroughbreds, Dale, I think we were looking at it the other day, and I think that there's something like 39 or 40 or 41 of them were all out of the sales.
All that you bought.
I don't want to be bragging here, but
no, you're going to brag. We check humility at the door when we're with you. Robby Albarado finally decided to join us.
Total delay at Churchill.
Total delay at Churchill.
I was part
Yeah.
of that.
Joe,
A little delay at Churchill Downs, plus he had to pick his very fancy Mercedes up from the Mercedes dealership, and now he's here. But you know, we're going back to organization just for a second, and how important it is to you for your barns to look perfect. I'd like for you to tell the people the story of Dallas Stewart the day you won the stake.
Oh, yeah, okay. We, I was out in Santa Anita, and Dallas had the division here at Churchill Downs, and it was one of those days where I think there were 2 or 3 stakes on the card. So the plane from California gets in at 4:30 in the afternoon, which is, you know, by the time I get to the airport, I get over to the barn about 5 o'clock. So I come in, I didn't see either race. I walk in the barn and they say, you won both stakes. And I thought, boy, great. So I go in my office, which I'm a little particular about anyhow, and I sit down and there's Burger King wrappers and some half-eaten hamburger on the desk and some paper wrappers, you know, leftover napkins. So I'm sitting there and Dallas is in the test barn and with the 2 stakes winners. And I'm looking at this and looking at this, and the longer I sat there, the worse I got about it, the more frustrated I got. So here comes Dallas. You know, he's got energy, unbelievable, and one of the great assistants I ever had. Here he comes across the yard, and he comes banging
Feeling
in the
good
yard.
about himself.
Oh gosh, pumped up, big pumped up. Says, boss, we kicked ass today. We got him today. We got him. And I said, and you're fired. He said, what? I said, you're fired. I said, if you can't take care of my, you know, office and look after things better than this, I said, you're gone. He goes down the shed row and he starts throwing buckets and kicking, throwing things and ranting and raving. He says, I worked for you 12 years and you fire me over a goddamn burger wrapper. He said, I can't believe it. And he comes back in and he's livid. And I said, calm down. I'm going to go to the hotel. I'm going to get a nice shower. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And I'm going to get up tomorrow morning without you. And I'm going to straighten out this barn and get it running like I want it run. And I left.
Over Burger King.
So the next morning I come in at about 4. And I mean, the office looks like a hospital operating room. The Venetian blinds are pledged. The floor is just sparkling. Everything is just immaculate. And about 10:15 after 4, here he comes, walks in. I looked up and I said, we better get to work. We got a lot to do today.
Did you ever congratulate him?
No, I never said another
congratulated
word.
him, no.
I just said, we better get to work. We got a lot to do.
Not only Wayne's barn, if you go to, I live down the road from Wayne's house, and his house is impeccable, just like his barn. He has guys working there 24/7. He only
Created a monster there, Robbie. That yard is
4,000 homes in
expensive.
Lake Forest. There's only one guy who has 3 yards.
And he bought the lot next to him so he could put
Two
the
lots.
flag up.
2 lots next to
To
him.
put the flagpole on.
No, and it's immaculate. It's immaculate every single time I pass by. He makes everybody else's look bad.
You guys got to come to our party next year.
I've been to one of your
Party,
parties.
Joe too. You got an invitation right here.
But I
It's a
did-
Thursday
You,
before the dirt.
you invited me though as an afterthought. I got the invitation about 7 o'clock Thursday night.
We didn't send out invitations. We just tell people.
Yeah, but
to
I think
show
I
up.
was an afterthought.
No,
Huh?
no.
You know I don't go to many parties I'm not thrown out of, so you waited till late.
I tell
You're
you,
moving up the ranks.
Yeah.
I went to one of Wayne's. The first time I went to his house, I went early, and I got the private tour of Wayne's World downstairs, and it's the most amazing museum you've ever seen.
We built another room.
It was needed because
Yeah,
you had
we
so
had
many
it in the room.
spectacular trophies, and it takes you an hour to look through everything. But he narrated a lot, and it was great. You walk down, you look to the right, you see all these Eclipse Awards. I get the goosebumps thinking about like people just want to win one. He's got them just fouled in there in his cases. And
Ron Moquette's got a good line on that. He said, if I ever get an Eclipse Award, I'm going to put it on the mantle and have lights on it. And he said, put it in a special place. He said, I went over to Wayne's house and he was using them for doorstops.
Now, let me ask you, Wayne. I won one Eclipse Award, and I was getting grief at home for not taking out the garbage and not doing this. and so I picked it up and just kind of walked around the house with it a little bit.
That's a good idea.
It didn't work though. She said, "You didn't win Eclipse Award for this house. Get that shit out of here."
No. That's what I was complaining one morning and moaning and groaning about I couldn't beat anybody, and Hobby said, just go home and walk around the basement for a while, you'll be all right.
You couldn't find anybody to feel sorry for you, could
No,
you?
not a bit.
No, right.
Not a bit.
I've been in some pretty phenomenal, like Pat Day's basement was pretty nice as a jockey. It was good, but when I seen yours, it was. You should charge people to see that. It's pretty amazing.
We were holding a brunch on Derby week every year. We didn't do it the last couple of years to raise money for the Kentucky Derby Museum. It was, 8 people come over and we had brunch. It was really well received.
Then you go in one storage room, and you see this trophy in the corner with dust on it. It's Flanders, something. Champions. There's not enough room in the basement.
We redid that room now. That's all
good.
Finished off. Yeah.
That's
You know the Woody Stevens Derby Trophy story?
No.
When Woody won the Derby in 80, what year did it swell? 84? 80,
Yeah.
84, I think it swelled.
Swell.
Or 85. Whatever, he wins the Derby. And he keeps calling Churchill saying, I never got my trophy. They said, no, we sent the trophy. And he swears he never got his Derby trophy. So when they did the big renovation, they've got a big vault. They unlock it, go inside. There's Swell's Derby trophy.
Really?
Sitting in there. And they sent it to Lucille. And of course, she donated it to the Derby Museum. They didn't have any children. But everybody thought Woody was crazy that he didn't get his Derby trophy. And he never saw it.
I'll tell you what.
But he had 5 watches.
When you win that one, my friends.
They're not going to engrave it. I'll engrave it myself. I'm taking it home with me. Yeah, they're not taking it back.
There's one with your name on it.
Well,
Coach, I'm sure you've been active plenty times, many times. And what was the best horse you ever trained?
I get asked that all the time. I thought the most brilliant was Landalusi. But,
What about Cash on Delivery?
I think that Grand Canyon, Dale, if nothing would happen to him, I think, it's interesting because he, I thought, was absolutely tailor-made for the Triple Crown, and he had that ability. He ran, now, we had Criminal Type, who was Horse of the Year that year, and at Hollywood Park in the fall, they ran a stake at a flat mile with Criminal Type, and he ran flat mile in 1:34 and 2. The next race was the Hollywood Park Futurity, and Grand Canyon came right behind him 1 race later on the same track and ran a mile in 1:33 flat.
The race he ran at Churchill Downs was phenomenal too.
Yeah.
I've never seen a horse that might be one of the prettiest horses I've ever seen.
I'll tell you what, it was interesting because I went to the sale, and that's when they had the Monday-Tuesday session at Keeneland, and then they had the Wednesday for the spillover horses they didn't think were quite the quality of the select part, Monday and Tuesday. So I was at Lee Eaton's consignment, Eaton Sales, and I walked in and I looked at all of his horses. I said, what about the Wednesday horses? He said, well, there's not much over there. And I said, well, since I'm here, I might as well go. He said, well, go around on the other side, they're over there, take a look. They led this horse out, and I almost buckled at the knees. I thought, hold, I'm like you. I said, whoa, this is the one right here. And I bought him, and it was Grand Canyon.
What qualities make you get
He just had it
goosebumps
all.
about a horse?
He won't tell you.
Balance, muscle
well.
tone, everything about him. He just
The presence?
walk,
Is it like a presence?
Yeah, the presence. It seems like there's so many good horses, but some of them just give you a goosebump.
But there's 5 or 6 things a horse has to have to be a good horse. I'm up to 5, and somebody won't tell me the 6th one. I ask him and ask him and ask him.
That's the intuition.
And he says,
though.
you never hip a chump. I'm still training. But we seem to like the same kind of horse. But
Yep.
what about Cash on Delivery? I thought that was your best horse.
Dash for Cash.
Dash for Cash, I mean.
I was going to say Dash
for Cash.
Dash for Cash was the best racehorse that I ever had, and that's a quarter horse, of course, that I never thought they could beat. I never worried about it. Every
When you
time
enter, you knew you were going to win.
Every time we entered them, I didn't care where he drew, who the hell entered. We didn't pay any attention. We didn't go to the draw or anything. We just said, get in there. Now, they had run 80-some nights at Los Alamitos, and they had the Champion of Champions. That's a race where they invite the 10 best horses in America to run on one night, older horses. And the one hole was the Kiss of Death. It was so bad at Los Alamitos that guys would draw it and scratch immediately, just said, hell with it. And
Then the guy that was a 2-hole scratch and then nobody knows.
yeah, but everybody thought it was the Kiss of Death. So they draw the Champion of Champions, And right out of the box, Dash for Cash, #1. Everybody, the agents threw their condition books in the air and said, we
Thinking
got
they have a chance. They have a chance.
we got them tonight. We
I
got them
thought
tonight.
quarterhouse trainers like the outside post.
Well, they
Yes.
do, but that, they claim that the harrow and the heavy tractor wheels never ran over the one hole because the harrow was wider than the tractor, and they claimed that was part of it. So they all were hooting and hollering, we got him. New world's record, win by what, 3.5 lengths, something like that, which is unbelievable.
Phenomenal horse. What year did you transfer over to thoroughbreds and why?
In '74, I trained both, did both. And then in '78, I made a clean sweep.
Why?
Well, we'd had a pretty good run in the quarter horses deal, and there wasn't a lot more I thought we actually, if I'm really honest about it, Jeff had the influence. Jeff kept saying, Dad, we're doing good over here, but we're going to do good over there. Let's go across town. He wanted to go to Santa Anita and Hollywood. And we'd go over there once in a while on a Sunday or something in the afternoon. He'd say, boy, Dad, this is where we belong, right here.
Was it like the big leagues compared to?
Yeah. You know, the quarter horses were kind of the stepchild of the racing in LA, and he, actually I went over there with 4 horses. 2 maidens, Terlingua, the mother of Stormcat, and Effervescing, which I bought from the Phipps family and was supposed to be done. Wasn't supposed to run anymore.
And what about the guy walking through the grandstand and ask you to claim your horse?
Well, that was the first thing that happened. I'm going through the grandstand, and a couple of guys walked up and stopped me, and they said, "You're over here now, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "We're gonna put." I
Now,
think
he's got 4 horses, remember, that's all he had.
I only had 4, and I'd used to a full
It still has to
blown
eat.
stable. And they said, "We're gonna put 100,000 in the account, and we want you to claim us some horses. We think you'll do good over here." And I said, "Nah." I said, "Don't do that. I don't want to claim any horses. I don't want to be in the claiming game. I'm gonna stay where I'm at." He walked
With my
off.
4?
Yeah,
Right.
Jeff said, "What are you out of your mind, Dad? Go back and get those guys."
And it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
Where was your big break? Who came along and said, hey,
I
you're
was
the
going
man?
down through the barn area on my saddle horse. I just had set up, and a gray-haired guy came walking up the road, and he stopped me. And he said, "Cowboy," he said, "I'm going to send you some horses." And he kept right on walking. And I rode a little further, and Jerry Fanning was standing there, and I said, "Who's that gray-haired guy walking down there?" He said, "That's John Nayrud of Tartan Stable." And I said, "Well, he just told me he's going to send me some horses." Well, Jerry said he will then. About an hour later, he came to the barn, and he said, I'm gonna send you 10 horses." And he said, "Get some stalls." And he said, "You won't have any trouble. I've already talked to Jimmy Kilroe, the director of racing." And he sent me, and in that group was Codex and his personal horses, Moving Money and Ivy Road, and some really good stakes horses. And between those horses of Tartan, Terlingua, who was the mother of Stormcat, who I broke her maiden in a stake, and Effervescing, who won 2 grade 1s on 2 different surfaces in 4 days, we got going pretty good.
When did Klein come along?
Not until about 80 or 81.
Was that, you think, your best run when Klein and French and Bill?
Yeah.
All
Well,
those
French and
guys.
Bill came from the quarter horses with me. They moved over. Bob French had some champion quarter horses, really good ones. And then we got Landalusi and Capote and Sacawista and those champions. And then Klein Klein lived on Rancho Santa Fe on a rock, literally. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Built this house on the top of a rock. And he said, "I want some babies out in front in the yard so I can have breakfast and watch them play." And I said, "Are you out of your mind?" I said, "You can't even grow avocado trees here." And he said, "No, I want some." And I said, "Well, you can't do that, Gene." He said, I want to buy some babies. "You got any babies?" I said, "I got 3. And I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll just sell them to you." Because I thought, well, the hell with you, I'll just sell them to you. I said, "I'll get a bloodstock agent to appraise them, and we'll sell them." He said, "No."
That's a pretty good scam there.
Yeah, he
Your
said,
best friend's
yeah.
a bloodstock agent.
Yeah, he said, no, just price them. So I said, "Okay, 200,000 apiece." Just like that. He said, "Ship them out here." I said, "We're not putting them on the front yard, but we'll ship them out here." There were 3 babies, all fillies. The first one, got pneumonia on the trip and died. The second one he named Jean's Lady, and she ran out just $2,000 short of $1 million.
When that was big.
When that was big. The third one was a little ratty gray filly that we were really disappointed never grew up, and he named her Lady Secret.
Turned out pretty damn good.
And that one turned out really good. And it's another little caveat to that. I was concerned about her, and I told Jeff, I said, I don't think that she's going to be much. So I said, we got to protect Jean. He's got, 200,000 tied up in her. I said, load her up, take her up to Bay Meadows, and run her in that little illicit Nicholas steak up there, and see if we can get some black type so we can protect him. And so he loads her up, drives all the way up there with her, and I don't hear from her. That was before simulcast. We didn't have, I didn't watch the race. We come back, and he's driving home. He stops at a truck stop about 9 o'clock at night, and I said, what the hell happened? He said, Dad, you wouldn't believe it. He said, she ran unbelievably right off the screen. He said that it was like two different races. I said, are you kidding? He said, no. He said, you wouldn't believe it. He said, you got to see this. And I said, well, there must have been some muskrats in that race. Little did I know she was going to be horse of the year.
Has to be one of the greatest fillies you ever trained.
Yeah, absolutely. Hickory showed up every time.
I don't know, Serena Song, Winning Colors.
Serena
those were pretty
Song,
good.
Winning Colors, they were good ones.
You know who beat Serena Song first
Spain.
time out? My filly.
Did you have?
Yeah, you were in the outside box, and there all I hear.
She ran fourth.
Yeah, all I hear is about Serena Song, Shane Sellers,
Oh,
and I won the race. And
I never
she
forgave
ducked
him.
out. She ducked all the way almost went to my barn right there. Straightened up and come back,
Yeah.
and we beat her. So that's my claim to fame.
I to this day, every time I see Shane Sellers, I say, you're the only guy that could get her beat right.
That shows you a young horse, and I hate the
Yeah.
horse. I hate my young horses to not have a horse on both sides of them.
Yeah.
Because they always go to that open area.
Yeah, they're gonna run to it all the time.
All the time. I'm going to tell a gambling story with Wayne. Wayne will put his money up. Doesn't matter what it is, buying horses, betting horses. So it was probably around the same time that we flew to Indiana, and it was a Wednesday afternoon when we ran in the fall here, and it was cold and drizzly again, and we had lunch together at the Turf Club. And we're walking down together. We both have a horse in the same race. I looked up and I said, I'm 25-1, Wayne. I think I can win this race. He said, well, I don't think you can win it, because I think I'll win it. And we looked up, he's 25-1. So we saddled our two horses, and we go to the corner and separately marked off, just looking, no handicapping, just looking at the horses, we marked them off. And we came up with like 6 or 7.
Seven hits.
Seven hits
Seven
that
hits.
could win the race.
Yeah.
So we put our money together, and he goes and makes the bet.
We boxed.
We boxed him in a superfecta. I win the race. He gets up for fourth by that far.
By just a
Yeah.
notch.
And I go to the winner's circle, and here's somebody won 4 Kentucky Derbies, and he's upstairs on the 4th floor. There aren't 3 people in the whole grandstand jumping up and down, waving our tickets, screaming down at me in the winner's circle. I said, now you won 4 Derbies, but we did make 18,000, Wayne.
Yeah, we split
A
18,000.
piece, yeah. I think we got a piece 18,000. But it didn't. Then we got to thinking we could do it every race, and we left there with enough for a cheeseburger by the time the meet was over. But that was a great story. I said, there's a man who loves horse racing, all aspects of it,
Right.
and doesn't matter. But that was fun. We stood there and marked our horses
Yeah.
and came out close together. So this year we go to sale, and Tammy, she had a whole Calumet. So I wouldn't have horses went for him from Calumet if it wasn't for him. He tells them that we've got too many, and he sent me some Calumet horses. And it's a couple of good ones. But one of them, Tammy's loving this way it's galloping early. I said, it's no good. Can't win. She said, why? The next two comes out wrong. She said, that's not, what's that got to do? This horse can really run. I said, next wrong. So we go to sale this summer, we're looking at horses, and Wayne's standing up, says, I'm going to ask him what he likes about a horse. And he sits there and draws a picture and said, their neck has to be just like this. If their neck comes out like that, she came back over and he said the same thing you did.
Robby will get a kick out of this. Cordero is not, a confirmation expert by any means, everything, but he was working a bunch of babies up there at Belmont.
Put him on his back, he can tell you what he had.
Yeah, yes, definitely. But he's working. And I said, well, I'm gonna shortcut this for you. You're wasting your time on a lot of these. He said, what? I said, you're wasting your time. I said, here's what you do. I said, you take your average whip, you know, standard whip, and you put it right in front of the saddle and tip it down on their neck. If that whip goes between their ears and extends
They're
behind
no
their
good.
ears, I said, just get off. You're wasting your time. I said,
You want me doing this every race now?
And the neck has to go the right direction,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
that's
It
what I
has to
said.
tie to the chest
I
properly.
said, that's right, you gotta just lay it out there, and I said, if that, just get off and say, look, I got other things to do, it don't work that
That's
way.
only 28 inches, though. But it is pretty long, I guess. You're right.
But they have to have a long neck, it has to come out just right.
Set
and-
under with it.
Right, and their hocks and everything have to line up just right. And so many people worry about the big old butt things. It's the angles more and the lines, and
It's definitely the angles.
it's the angles.
Yeah. I'm sure you got some. Coach, I got 100,000 questions for you. I'm honored to be here. I'm sure Joe does too. But I have one question that I asked Pat Day one time. He's accomplished everything like yourself in thoroughbred business. I said, why do you still do it? And he told me why. And I'll tell you, he says, you'll see. That's all he told me. You'll see. And as an older rider now, I'm one of those that, and I see what he's talking about. It's hard to leave the game. So why is Coach Mr. Wayne Lukas not retired? Just
It's
lay
such-
back on a beach somewhere.
It is so seductive, and once you've been, just like he's stuck now because Shackelford jumped up.
Yeah,
and
won the
ruined
Preakness.
it. Yeah, it's so seductive. The whole sport. There very few people can walk away from it. And riders are in that same boat. You know how many guys
Push
do
you
you
come
know
back,
have
yeah.
retired and come
Yeah,
back,
sure.
retired and come back? It's hard to leave it. And it's not the spotlight and everything, it's the challenge. It's the competitive thing. If you aren't competitive, or Dale or I am not competitive.
And you're very competitive
change.
because when you ride for Wayne, he instills confidence in you. Gary Stevens told me a story. He's going to ride the Preakness for Wayne Lukas. You go see Wayne the morning of, horse was not, he says, didn't have a prayer. When the captain of Wayne closed the door, he said, when I left there, I thought I could win the Preakness.
That's it.
Went in, didn't think I had a, no, that was before that. He said, didn't think I had a chance, but when I left there, I thought I could win the Preakness. That's how a coach instills that in you, that confidence.
But let me tell you,
Exudes confidence.
you asked him that question. I asked that question to him 10 years ago when I was overdrawn at the bank. Nobody was paying me. And I go, Wayne, why do you still do this? You don't have to. He said, this is a much better game when you don't have to play it.
That's exactly right. The whole game changes when you don't have to do it. That's true of all athletics, all real estate deals, all car salesmen, everything. When you don't have to do it, it changes the game.
But we also get to look at the Mona Lisa every day. They're works of art.
Yeah.
The beautiful horse, those horses that we deal with now.
Let me tell you a cute story about your friend Pat Day. He's riding timber country, 2-year-old champion. Now we think he's probably our best shot for the Triple Crown, and he's a winter book favorite and so forth. We bring him out as a 3-year-old, and I think he runs third his first race with Pat. We run him again, he runs fourth. Now we run in the Kentucky Derby, and he runs third. But
You took Pat Day off.
well, no, we start thinking that the owners, actually, were 3 of them, started questioning. In fact, the wives got involved. They said, we don't
Uh-oh.
think Pat Day is, strong
When the
enough,
wives
and
get
aggressive
involved, you're
enough.
done.
Yeah, right. So there was a lot of conversation. So the Preakness rolls around. And so on the Preakness morning, just like you were talking about, I go up.
But not to mention, you did win that Derby.
Yes, we won the Derby, but he was third, which
Yeah,
probably
I know,
didn't
but
help
let's go ahead and
things
tell everybody, you
either.
did win the Derby that year anyway. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
but, so I go up to the jocks room, and I call for Pat, and here he comes out in his robe, and classy as he always is. And I said, Pat, we got a problem. I said, today is the day. I said, I've had to defend you on this. I want to be perfectly frank with you. You have got to get on your belly and get it done today. This is the champion. I said, if you have to play Rocky tapes, take a B12 shot, a cold shower, if you want me to slap you around before the race, whatever it takes. I said, you've got to do it today. I said, I can't keep you on this horse. He calmly looks at me and said, if it's God's will, it'll happen. And walks off. Wins the Preakness.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
He won the Preakness
Yeah, he did. On Timber
Timber
Country.
Country, yeah.
I thought
That's
that's
the
the one you
favorite.
took him
Thunderdome.
off of.
No, he won it on Timber
Well, okay,
Country.
which one did you take him
Thunderdome.
off of and he came back and beat you?
That was in the Preakness too, but that was a different year.
Okay, I thought that was that year.
Yeah, he came back and beat me on Zito's horse. We were going for our 7th straight Triple Crown win, and he stopped us. And then we won 7 out of 8 Triple Crown in a series, but
I saw the Fathom 7 straight Triple Crown races.
yeah, 7
But-
out of 8.
But Woody Stevens would say, but you don't have 5 watches.
But I scared the hell out of him. I got 4 of those now.
I know. Yeah, he thought you were gonna get there, didn't you?
He was worried. You know, he and I became really good friends. You know, he had trouble getting close to anybody that threatened him, I
Yeah.
think. But after his latter years, I'd go to Belmont and he'd call up and say, meet me up there in the executive room, we're gonna have lunch together. And he was on a nebulizer then and, you know, everything. But we became very close.
You know, I worked for Woody for a few months one winter, just to say I did when I was 19. And it's amazing how, when you get to that level, how you guys do come together and talk about things.
You know, it's interesting you'd say that, Dale, because when I came over from the quarter horses, there was quite a bit of animosity. We'd had a tremendous run in the quarter horse business. We were.
Now you're invading their space.
Yeah, now we're gonna take the food off their table, maybe. But there was a lot of animosity. There were 3 trainers at Santa Anita that absolutely accepted me right from day one. Charlie Whittingham, Laz Barrera, and Bob Wheeler, who they put in the Hall of Fame a year ago. Those 3 guys were so secure that Charlie and Laz became dear friends right from the get-go. And the other guys, like you were saying, were threatened, and it took
But once they just figured out they couldn't beat you, we might as well be his friends.
took 4 or 5 years to win them over.
Let me tell you what Alan Jerkins told me just this year before he died. He was talking about doing things your way. And he says, you know, I was the youngest trainer doing well at Belmont when I was 20-something, early 20s.
Yeah.
And the guys that had been there forever looked down on me all the time. Didn't matter how much I won, he had to win by doing something different or something. And then his peer group had kind of caught up with him, Leroy Jolly and those guys. And he said they were all friendly to him. He said, but he didn't become the chief until he was older and the younger guys came behind him and they could truly respect him with no animosity. And I don't know if you've ever felt that way or not.
I think that's very true.
I mean, you see guys like me that look up to you so much, and even the ones. And,
Well, we're not that far apart.
well, I'm 49 years old, and that's going to lead to my next question: is when were you able to train horses because you didn't have to? Because I'm 49 years old, and it looks like it's way down the road.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the whole respect thing comes from all the ones who's come up through Wayne, like Kieran and Dallas and Todd and Mike Maker.
Well,
that's a class there that all the students, they're great horsemen and great trainers.
You know what has helped there, though? Dale touched on it right before you came about the corporate image and, you know, just having numbers and not having any horsemanship. I think that we probably won over a lot of people by showing that those guys that all came through that program are doing a lot of the same things. And so there had to be some horsemanship there someplace, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
otherwise
you cannot last without the horsemanship. Frank Stronach told me the higher a monkey climbs a pole, the more exposes his ass. So if you're gonna stay at the top of that pole, you better be able to do what you say you can do.
You got to defend your territory every damn day. And in the horse business, people have short memories.
Let me tell you a little story about Saratoga. We this summer, Rick Dutchrow and Tony Dutchrow and myself, we're all really good friends, similar ages, grew up the same way. We went to lunch at Saratoga National, and we started talking about Wayne and the Dutchrow, their father, and about Woody,
Nicky.
and we were like three giddy kids talking about our heroes. Now, I just won the Travers, and Tony just won Alabama. And we're talking about you guys, and the horses we got to see, and the riders we got to see as kids. And we were almost like giddy kids. And I started laughing, and I was leaving next week, and Tony said, what are you laughing about? I said, do you realize we're doing now what they did. He said, I wonder if there's any kids behind us looking at us like we
Definitely.
did them.
Definitely.
How does it make you feel when Dale says something like that? You wake up in the morning every day and you're Dwayne Lukas with all these accomplishments and everything that you've done and everything you've given back to the game. It's almost, for someone like me, kind of surreal. Like it's a different kind of life. And everything that you've done in this game is going to live on forever. I mean, all of these accomplishments are always going to be at the very top and the pinnacle of everything.
Well, I told my wife on different occasions, there's a lot of days when I don't want to be me.
Right. But Wayne transcends horse racing. Where he goes, people know who he is.
Right? It's great for the game.
It's
Well,
great
you
for the
develop
game.
a brand.
He developed a brand, but
Yeah.
in developing a brand, again, this is a game. If you don't have the talent, you're not gonna get there. It'll show. You can't bullshit for very long.
No, you expose yourself every time the
Every
gate
time
opens.
that gate
Robbie
opens.
does, you do, I do, everybody does.
But another thing about Wayne is, I have never heard Wayne say a mean word about anybody.
Right.
No, I'm not going to.
And you
either.
think
You
the
accept
people-
that responsibility.
You
Do
think
good
that those
things with it.
people that get to that level, you can say, well, that guy's no good, and he might not be good. He might not be he might be a bad trainer. I've never heard him say a guy's a bad trainer. Never heard him say a guy needs to do this or do this different. He lets everybody do the things their way, and he's going to do the things his way.
I'm not going to name this trainer, you might guess, but I pulled up a young trainer that's doing very well in New York this summer. And he was by the rail. I said, look, I'm 80 years old this summer. I'm going to give you a piece of advice, and you didn't ask for it. I'm just going to offer it. I said, you need to just back up and try to be a little bit more humble and a little bit friendlier to everybody. I said, people are going to embrace you and lift you up and really.
And Chad has been, but
I was going to say, how many guesses do we need, Wayne?
yeah, and Chad's close with me. There's very few people Chad's close with. Him, the two of us are probably the ones that he's closest
always
to
been
and
good with
nicest to.
me,
He's
yeah.
been a great guy to me. But people didn't accept him when he came in.
Not
They
at
thought he
all.
got too much, too
Yeah.
quick. But he didn't.
Yeah.
And all these guys that knock him, I said, well, if he's that bad, he's an Ivy League graduate. Wait till somebody learns something, because you're all in trouble.
Yeah.
I like Chad. Chad's a good guy, but you told him right.
There must be something you liked about him to even help him, because like Pat would come up to me and I learned so much from him.
Sure.
And only because he liked me. We were good friends, and every day I was just stare at him and see things he do, and he'd come over. And if he helped you, he liked you. If he didn't, you didn't care. And I'm like that now with younger jocks. If I like him, I'll help him. If I don't,
Shoemaker was that way.
we see him come and go all the time.
Shoemaker was great to take people aside, especially Pinkai.
Yeah.
He
But
was
you
close.
can't teach a trainer how to train, but you can teach them how to handle themselves.
Right.
Around, like us walking out. I told a story earlier, 20 years ago when I was first went to Saratoga, and I was intimidated to go to Saratoga. I mean, my father told me people like us don't win there. We were Ellis Park trainers. But I took 6 horses and did very well. The next year I think, well, I'm going to do good again, and I'm doing terrible. And the guy yells out of the grandstands, go back to Ellis Park where you belong, you're burning up money. And I wanted to go kill the guy. I'm about to have a heart attack. And I run in, so I go up in the racing office, and Wayne comes in laughing after the next race. I said, what's so goddamn funny, Wayne? He said, the guy just yelled down at me and said, go back to quarter horses where you belong, you're burning up money. And I got to see how the two of us handled it and who he is. So we walked out together, and he says to me, you can't judge yourself day to day in this game or you'll go crazy. He said, judge yourself in 5-year increments and just keep doing what you're doing and don't worry about what other people say and try to train your horses. He said, I made millions of dollars running them where the press said I don't belong. Now I've won 5 great stakes, including great ones with maidens. Since that story.
It's too volatile. The game, you're in even a worse position because you're riding 6, 7 a day where we're running 1 or 2. But if you start evaluating every night, go home, and you fight your head over that. It's too volatile a game. You got to look at it, see how you're doing in 2, 3 years. If you're doing pretty good, maybe roll it over. It's like your driver's license, renew it.
Sure.
You look at the total body of work instead of the daily body of work.
Absolutely.
Two other quick things. Wayne wins those derbies, and the next day in the paper, they write, oh, Wayne Lukas was at the barn 4:30 in the morning on Sunday after winning the derby. Wayne, if I do ever get one, they might need a trainer for the Preakness. I hate to tell you. The other thing I always wanted.
I don't think we'd want to
No.
report what's happening at 4:30 in the morning.
No, 4:30.
If it was you.
The other thing is I called Karen, and I've been friends since I was 15 years old, and I called Karen and said, I went to him, I said, I really want to go to work for Wayne. I said, I want to do it that way. I don't want to do it our way. I said, how do you do it? He said, well, Wayne sat me down and he said, son, as long as you can be here at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, you're going to be fine. I said, well, I'm not going to be working for Wayne.
Yeah, Ken Ramsey came to me last week, and he said, or at Keeneland, it was a couple of weeks ago. He said he was real frustrated. He said, I've run 10 seconds and 5/3. He said, Wayne, what the hell am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? I said, when are you getting up? He said, at 5 o'clock. I said, try getting up at 4.
We talk about so many of your great horses, but there's a difference between winning really important races, and obviously there's a lot of pride and accomplishment in the feeling. But what accomplishments do you remember most as being the most satisfying? It doesn't have to be a Derby win. It doesn't have to be a Breeders' Cup win. I mean, Cat Thief winning the Breeders' Cup, Spain winning the Distaff, those were long shots that nobody expected to do anything. Do you get more satisfaction from those than you do even from winning with phenomenal great horses that are expected to win?
Possibly a little bit, yeah. I think one of the best training jobs was Tabasco Cat, and that was that was a horse that ran over Jeff and ended his training career virtually. And
Let's stop there for a minute. And for anybody that doesn't know, Jeff Lukas was a phenomenal horse trainer, and as a kid, Wayne didn't come around as much as he sent Jeff here. And I would go sit and watch him. He'd be on his pony, and I'd try to catch what he was talking to the riders as they rode back, and just listen to what he had to say. And I was intimidated by him so bad because he was so good at what he did. And the tragedy of Tabasco Cat running over, there's no telling what he could have done in horse race. He may have kept Todd from passing you.
definitely, I really believe
And
that.
yes. And Todd, by the way, came up and told you that he knows
Todd
that,
gives Jeff a lot of credit.
yeah,
for his
that's what I'm
success.
saying. That Jeff Lukas was every bit as good a horse trainer as there ever lived. And it's just a shame what happened to him. And it was but he's doing good. He's happy.
Yeah, he's happy. And
He
he's
has
got
two great kids.
2 great kids and everything. The Tabasco Cat thing, that horse was so high strung and everything he probably could have won the Triple Crown. The horse in the gate next to him threw a fit. And he was so high strung that he banged and hit the front of it about 2 or 3 times before they opened it. And he ended up, I think, running 5th, and then he came back and won the Preakness in the Belmont. But he was a daily challenge. That horse was, Joe, a complete challenge. Spain, to get her to win $4 million was a challenge also. They dropped her off. She ran 4th at the Fresno Fair, the race before I got her. And she came in there, was all ate up with girth itch and everything, and they dropped her off. The Thoroughbred Corp dropped her off, and I thought, boy, what are we going to do with this little muskrat? And she turned out to be...
I think one of your best jobs was Juvenile in Santa Anita, Phillies. Last one. Phillies
Take
was
Charge Brandon?
Take Charge Brandon.
Oh, well, that... The only thing is that she showed some...
But to even enter,
Yeah, yeah, she had signs of brilliance.
there
I
weren't
guess.
10 trainers in the country would have entered her.
Well, here's one of my favorite sayings. Don't create a situation that makes you a horse trainer. I was getting creative with her. She was so brilliantly fast, Dale, that I thought that, for her to get 2 turns and be a Giants Causeway Classic, Oaks type filly and everything, that I needed to get it to that relaxation, drop her back, mid-pack, make a run. And finally, in frustration, I just said, guys, we're going to just let her do what she does best. We're just going to let her do her thing and not try to inhibit her. She's got her mind made up. And when we did that, bam, 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 world champion.
Another one. Did you bet on her?
I didn't, but my grandson did.
That's good. You'd rather him bet
Yeah,
anyway.
he got pretty fat.
Yeah.
And
It
Coach, I
didn't
know
take a
you've
lot.
had a lot of pressures in horse racing, but for me, I think your biggest pressure every day, he's by far the best dressed trainer in the history of horse racing. Every single
kind to
day,
say that.
it looks impeccable. And I heard a story one time. You had a home in California. You had one room just for your suits. How many suits were there? I heard different stories about it. I heard there was 200 suits, 300 suits.
Well, what happened, I was a bachelor now, so we took one bit, ESPN came in and did a special. That's how that thing got out. It wasn't supposed to be let out, but they came in and did some filming in the house there in Arcadia. And while I was talking to one of the guys that were doing the interview, the crew were wandering around through the house. They opened the refrigerator and saw 2 Cokes in there and a Jello pudding, and they, said that, this is a bachelor's refrigerator. And they were wandering around upstairs, and they got into this one bedroom that I changed into a closet. So they said, "Holy moly!" So they started counting them, and that's how that story got out. There was just north of 200. But I gave John DeSantos over there at Santa Anita one day 28 of them and stuff. So
I'll tell you a story. I went to Neiman Marcus I went into Neiman Marcus, the Bar Harbor Mall in Miami, and they have there's the most Brioni of anywhere. And I know the guy that sells them. I go to buy a pair of Brioni socks. And that's how expensive they are. He tells me, Wayne Lucas? Yeah. He just came here and bought 5 Brioni suits, total suits and socks and everything. Now they're $10,000 to $15,000 a suit. So that I see him at the races. I said, "Wayne, did you buy 5 Brioni suits?" And he said, "Yeah." And I hadn't worn one yet. I don't like the way they hang on me.
If we can,
I think some of this is embellished, but
stories always take on a
I
life
don't
of
think
their
it's
own,
too.
right?
You don't have your cufflinks on, do you?
no.
I was hoping you wore those tonight. He has cufflinks of the quarter horse that have the gold circle around them, and it's his molars, his caps.
His
of
caps,
teeth.
his teeth. People look at them and they say, "Those look like teeth." What I did is I pulled the caps, the 3-year-old caps off Dash for Cash, and I laid them on the counter on my desk, and I'm looking at them, and I thought, boy, they were perfectly matched, So I took them down to a jeweler, and he polished them out and encased them in 24 karat gold, and they're cufflinks. I don't wear a lot of cufflink shirts anymore, but
Is there a lucky suit or lucky tie that you've
Yeah.
worn over?
are
Is
you
there one?
superstitious?
Are you superstitious?
No.
I am.
Oh,
I'm
hell,
very.
I'm not.
I'm very.
I'm not superstitious, but I always say, "Why take a chance?" Well, Black Cat comes, I'm going around him a little way.
You're not sure you
Why
want-
take a chance?
you don't
Any
want-
reason
you don't
to
want
chance
to
it, right?
test it,
Right, it's easy enough.
Yeah. That's like my saying, if you're an atheist, you better hope you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think there's a lot of Christians just in case.
Yeah.
and we could bring it kind of like more to what's coming up like this weekend, because I'm really curious about the whole Mr. Z saga and running in the Derby, and then getting and bringing him to Baltimore, and Mr. Zayat says we're not running, you say we are running, and then all of a sudden there's the sale. Can you kind of explain to us what happened a little bit behind the scenes
Well-
there? Because you wound up winning the Ohio Derby, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
After the Preakness.
We thought that he probably fit the Preakness. We didn't have grandiose ideas that he was going to win it or anything, but I thought he merited going into the race, just like so many others. Sometimes you're in complete denial on some of these 3-year-olds when the Derby and Triple Crown fever takes over. But I was on the phone with Brad Kelly at Calumet, and he said, are you in the Preakness? And I said, no. I said, Mr. Zayat doesn't want us to run in there. He thought it might compromise American Pharaoh's chances a little bit, because they're both, going to get into the pace duel. And he said, well, damned if I owned him, we'd run him. And of course that, kind of perked my interest a little bit. And I said, well, I ain't so sure you couldn't own him. And so, to cut to the chase here, make a long story short, as they say, there were 28 phone calls between me as the intermediate, Zayat, Mr. Zayat, and Brad Kelly never talked. I'd call him, then I'd call him, then I'd call him.
By the way, Mr. Brad Kelly has 10 trainers. He's the only one you'll talk to.
28 phone calls back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and finally, Mr. Zayat would not move. He had set a price on him, and he was adamant, and so I kept bringing Brad Kelly a little bit more, a little further, a little further, a little further. And finally, he just said, oh, hell, if you want to buy them, just go ahead and buy them. But he said, try to get me something. He said, I hate to make a deal where I don't get some edge. So I called Mr. Zayat back and I said, why don't you, he's going to buy the horse, why don't you just sweeten it a little bit? He said, what do you want to do? I said, give him a couple breedings to American Pharoah. Not breeding rights.
Paid for it.
Yeah, well, no, not breeding rights,
Oh.
breeding.
Just a
two
couple of
breedings.
covers.
Yeah, I said, just give him a couple breedings. And so Mr. Zayat said, absolutely, call him back and tell him.
There you go.
The whole deal took place at, we had to have it done by Wednesday at 10:30 for the draw. And the whole deal was signed and faxed at 9 o'clock that
That was
morning.
a $400 gift.
And that tells everyone Wayne Lukas was planning on running. He was training for the Preakness. No matter what happened, he was planning on running the Preakness.
Now, you guys are running against each other on Friday. What are those rivalries like? I mean, you guys are.
Well, I feel bad for him.
You guys are you're all friends, but you all
Yeah.
I
compete
feel
against
bad
each
for
other.
me. I'm
That's a
not a
dynamic.
realist, but I get realistic in some ways.
It's the only job in the world that you stand next to your friend and compete with every day.
I mean, the jocks rooms like
Jock's
that.
rooms like that. But we're all friends and we love the game. And
Not
you know,
all of
Wade
us.
Lukas could be
Not all of
Jack Welch. He could he could be the CEO of GE. But he does this because he's a sportsman and he loves the game. And we're all sportsmen. And so when you're a bunch of sportsmen standing out there, you appreciate a good effort. If his horse beats mine and he runs a big effort, I'm going to appreciate that effort.
By the way, this is a very good handicapper. I've been watching you. I wasn't a fan of yours, Joe, because I never pay attention to that paddock stuff. You know, when you're saddling a horse, you don't listen. But I've been watching you, and you're damn good.
Thank you. Dale's trying to take my job.
Yeah,
I
you're
told him
damn
I want to
good.
do it.
From Hawthorne Park.
But I'm
to
not a
Churchill
handicap. I'm
Downs.
just
There
I
you
mean,
go.
marking
Gotta
them
start.
off.
Everyone's got
What
to
are you
start
batting?
somewhere.
What are you batting? About 30%?
Yeah, you
Pretty
know what?
close.
And you know, as time goes on, you get more familiar with.
Yeah.
You know,
And he
the
puts his
horses
own
and
money up.
players and-
He'll put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, I think you have to, in order to be good at this, I think you have to have an investment, and you're
Well,
going to pay a lot
I've
more
told
attention.
some of my friends, you know, they said, who do you like in this race? I haven't got a clue, but I said, you can pay attention to Joe and you won't be far off.
I've complimented one time this year. I thought
Yeah.
I was the only one who knew about the horse, but he did.
I kind of like to
Almost
prove
want
you
to.
wrong, but
Yeah, and you did, and you came up to me after you did it with super sacks.
Super sacks, yeah.
sacks.
yeah,
You gotta love people who are passionate about the game.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's two different types of people. So everybody comes to me. You get
Super
kids.
Sacks is in tomorrow, Joe.
I saw that. What do you
No,
think?
Friday.
On dirt.
Friday. Yeah, but I think we've changed her a little bit. I think she's a little more. Well, Robbie's on her.
I rode against her one time, and this
Yeah.
I think the spring was really
You
grass.
just got to leave her alone.
And we let her go, and James Graham was on her, getting to the turn,
Yeah.
and Landeros, got him hit on the fence.
Yeah.
I said, man, you just you gotta, we were actually talking,
Yeah.
you gotta tighten. He says, don't worry, she's gonna blow a turn. Super sacks. I said, don't worry, she's gonna blow a turn, we're gonna get through the inside. She went around there, she goes,
Yeah,
Threw off.
you can't grab her to fight her. I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now. You just-
yeah, I've been
just
behind
be
her.
a passenger.
Yes, absolutely.
She'll run big.
Wayne's horses that impresses me the most about him is you can tell they'll do something like that in a race. Get out and you think he fixes them, and they come back and run superstar races. And you just got to draw a line through a really bad race on a Wayne Lukas horse and go bet it. If he has any form at all behind it, and one bad one, something went wrong, don't worry about it. Coach has got it fixed.
That's the coaching mentality coming out. See, that's exactly how basketball and football coaches think. You know, you go over it and you think it through and you say, well, you know, we're not running off tackle in this game. We better throw the ball a little bit.
Well, that was a time about Take Charge Brandy. We were up there, Frank Jones and I, gambling and stuff. So you have to use her because he ain't gonna have her here just to get an all access pin. He's here to win that race, and he's figured something out. She was coming off a couple bad races.
Couple bets.
True story, we were watching the race. She's on the backside. She went 23:46. So Corleone, who had been riding her, he says, if she wins, I'm going to quit riding. I said, I will too. I had called and said, I will too.
Yeah,
And then she won. Everybody grabbed our tag and wanted to get us
Yeah,
out.
luckily only the two of you heard each other.
Because she had been running some bad races.
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
took off there, and I was like, wow. I should
Dale
never
will tell
ever
you,
question.
Dale was eavesdropping when I'm talking to Victor.
yeah.
He
He tells him go to the lead. And I grabbed Victor and I said, "That spot will be taken, Bob."
I told him, I
race.
said, I said, at the quarter pole, I want you to get a little separation.
right.
And you said, there will be no
There
separation.
ain't gonna be no separation. I thought I had the chance to win the race and beat him that day. But then, who was the first one to congratulate you in the winner's circle?
You were right there, and I appreciated it. I told everybody, I said, that was classy. He came right over and told me.
I said, "That's unbelievable. You are the best." I'm gonna tell you what's classy. We're talking about my Travers win this year, and you were there, I think, and I told him, "I'm glad you limited the number of people to 53 that can boo me on Wednesday at the draw." Never thinking, and we'll win the race. And of course, I didn't go to the press conference. I didn't go to the trophy. I don't know. I was kind of in a fog. I went with my horse. I walked back.
Really?
Yeah, really. And they tried to wave me back. I said, "I'm going with my horse." And I'm taking the flowers off them. And they cheered him the entire way up the thing. And it shows you what true sportsmen are. And they appreciated his performance. He just beat American Pharoah, America's horse. But they appreciated the performance he gave. And I didn't hear one boo.
That's Saratoga, though. The New York Saratoga.
Those are
crowd
racing fans.
They really are racing fans, and they appreciate good performance. And that's why we can stand together every day and train horses side by side and appreciate what each other have done.
Yeah, it's so difficult. I don't get any animosity, when somebody beats me fair and square. I remember when we won those 6 Cripple Town races in a row, and I remember on about the 5th or 4th one, Nick Zito I thought was getting suicidal. And
Nick's a good guy, though.
Yeah, and I went down and put my arm around him. I said, "Nick, don't worry about one of these has got your name on it." And sure enough, when we were going for number 7, he beats us.
And Nick, I'll tell you a story about Nick. Nick, 2 years ago, I was driving out the back of Saratoga, and Nick's barn's right there. And I just see him sitting there, and it's kind of late. So I pulled around there, he's sitting under a tree, marking his charts or something, and I just parked the car and go there and sit. And so we talked for 2 hours. It might be my favorite 2 hours I've ever spent in 25 years of Saratoga, about just philosophies and different things. And you know what he tells me? He says, "You know that year in the Derby when I nailed you on the wire for second and you ran third?" He said, "I think if I had won that Derby, I could be content." I said, "You son of a bitch. You won 3 Kentucky Derbies, you need the 4th one to be content?" Two. Oh, he's only won 2. So you won 2 Kentucky Derbies, you need the 3rd one to be content. Now how tough are we on
Let
ourselves?
me tell you a cute story about him. He tells this story to me years later. He's running in his first Whitney. He hadn't been training very long, but he's got a Whitney horse, and the Whitney to him was huge. It was Saratoga, the Whitney. So
He's a New Yorker.
yeah. So he says, "I come to the paddock." He said, "I'm wringing wet. I'm worried. I want everything to go perfect. I don't know if I can win it, but I'm in it." And he said, "I come in the paddock." And he said, "I turn my horse, I'm checking everything, and I glance in the next stall." And he said, "Jeff Lukas has got this little gray filly standing there, and he's reading the racing form."
Yeah.
And he said, "I thought, damn." He said, "I'm so nervous I can't even hardly saddle." And he's leaning against the wall waiting for the ballot to come out, reading the racing form. So he says, "I get my horse saddled, and I'm worried about everything. I give the instructions, and I'm cutting through the crowd, and I'm headed up so I can get a good spot to see how he's warming up. And I glance off to my left, and he said, Jeff Lukas is over at a hot dog stand fixing a hot dog." He said, "I knew right then and there we were in deep trouble." He said, "We knew right then and there, and that was over."
I've won some big races before, and I'm going to tell you, one of my favorites of all was a few weeks ago. I won the first inaugural running of the Lukas Classic.
Well, thank you.
And I was, unfortunately, you weren't there for the picture because I'd be hanging on my wall. But it felt good after the race, just winning your
Well, thank you.
inaugural race named after you.
Well, I
It felt so
saw
good
that
to do
winner
it.
circle
It
picture
felt
with
so
that
good to do it.
day
I'm glad
that
you're back
race.
to join us after that.
You almost made it though.
It was
right?
almost a Lukas Memorial.
Yeah.
One of the most under the radar horses that I don't think people realize how special was what you did with him was Will Take Charge, because that horse didn't really compete well in any of the Triple Crown races, and still won the Eclipse Award for top 3-year-old.
You know.
And talk about a horse that's developing later on in the year, and the way the horse ran in the Classic, and just, was there a moment that you had that horse figured out? Like, you just kept
I think it
remaining
was a little bit
confident.
gradual,
Yeah.
Joe, but
Yeah.
we were trying different things and trying, he was developing, he was a big horse. He stood, right at 17 hands. And he was developing mentally a little bit along the way. I don't want to take a lot of credit. I thought we managed him pretty good. We gave him a lot of opportunities, obviously. But I'm trying to think of the classic, who was it? I think Bejarano carried him out on the turn in the classic, and he gets beat, just an inch.
Right.
I think he could have won the classic, but he was still champion. And coming back and winning the Clark was probably the key.
Right.
He didn't come back and win that till he was 4, though.
Yeah, but I mean that made him. No, he won the
No, I
Clark
wanted
in
to
three.
three, yeah, after the Breeders' Cup.
I thought that, was he not the one
Yeah.
Shackelford beat in the Clark, and he comes
He
back and
beat
wins that 4?
he beat Game on Dude.
He came back and beat Game on
Game
Dude
on
and the
Dude.
Clark.
Oh, no, you're exactly, that's right, because
Yeah.
my horse, the
Yeah.
horse I'm
That
thinking
gave
of
him
is
the
his brother.
championship.
Yeah.
And that was with
Yeah.
Pat Burnhead's
Yeah,
brother,
Pat
right?
Burnhead take Charge Indy.
Yeah, if you take charge in, you got really
No,
good
we
when
won
Shackelford retired.
the Clark as a 3-year-old with and
Right.
beat Game on Dude.
That's a fun race to win, and
Oh yeah, we'll get after it.
people got to be there and see it. It's
It's a damn good race.
It is.
Who you having there?
I don't ride the Clark.
You don't ride the Clark? Wow. You should
You're
have
open,
come
and
by
I let
I waited
Corey
for
Landry
Keen
ride
Ice.
my
I
horse.
waited for Keen Ice. He's a Carolina, and I know a little something about those, so just waited for him. But,
You could have come by, and Mr. Z was open till draw.
Mr. Z's, he's a nice horse too.
When you ride Santana, you're always open at the draw.
I'll tell you about the Clark.
You never know until they
Yeah.
actually chisel it in stone.
But yeah, it's right. Well, you know it when you name him on, so you took
Yeah.
because if Asmussen
He
enters, he's going.
spun me today.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, the Clark Handicap is one of the biggest races I've ever won. Because Shackelford stumbled out of the gate in the mile, and there was no way he was going to lose that Breeders' Cup mile. And you can't spot the great milers 2 steps. He spotted them 2. And they wanted to retire him. I said, we're not going to retire him. We cannot retire him, this horse, off that race. They said, well, we'll cheapen him even more. He's already done a stallion deal. I said, we're not going to cheapen
That's
him.
why you got to stay to your guns.
And-
You're looking at them. They're
I said,
speculating.
right. I said, I got to run him. And I never hear the announcer when they're running a race, for some reason, they zone out. For some reason that day, there's 30,000 people there. It's under the lights. And I hear the announcer saying, Shackelford looking at the last half mile of his career. And it gave me chills. And the crowd started cheering. And they didn't stop till he got back to the barn.
Well, they appreciate those.
They
efforts.
appreciate it, but the problem was, Wayne, he could have said the last half mile of Dale Roman's career, because it took me a long time. It took me a long time to recover when he walked out of the barn, as you probably felt that same way a few times.
The
they
hardest
leave-
one for me was Landalusi.
When she died.
Yeah, 5 straight wins and unbelievable brilliance. I'll tell you a cute story about her. She run in the Lassie Stakes, which is now called the Landalusi Stake in her honor. But there was, I think, 4 stakes winners in a 7-horse field that day. And they roll along, and she's ahead in front and neck, being rated Pinkai's honor. And they come off the turn, and if you watch that video, and they come off the turn, there's 4 horses right across the track within a half a length of each other. They're all right there. If you stop the video right there and say, who wins this race? You'd say, well, any one of these 4 has got a great shot. And then from the quarter pole to the wire, she opens up 21 lengths.
Oh, wow.
Just waltz home.
Might be the greatest 2-year-old filly of all time.
Boy, just unbelievable brilliance.
You boys are
Now-
too young for her. But
Yeah, that you watch that video and you wouldn't believe it. Now, Pinkai never pulled up a horse in his life. He just let him run over to the backside till they got tired. he never exhausted himself because he was always on such a strict diet. He never tried to pull one up and get tired. So he's way over there and all the way around to the 5/8 or half mile pole. And Ray Seville ran second in the Lassie, 21 lengths back. So he gets back to the scale. Well, of course, the press all come running down there. They said, holy moly, we never seen anything like that. And Ray gets on the scale. Now, Ray, when he got excited or any time, would stutter.
Stuttered all the time.
Yeah, he would really stutter a lot. So he's on the scale, so the press is waiting for Pinpipe to come back with Landalusi. So they said, Ray, what did you think? What do you think? He said, I beat everybody I could see.
That was good.
I can totally see that.
Yes, absolutely. That's
I
right.
beat everybody I could see.
Ray, let me tell a Ray story real quick. He stuttered and he tells me this story that this trainer comes down and tells him to start smooching it to the horse at the quarter pole, and this horse will take off when you smooch to him. And he said the horse got to running late and got beat that far. And he come back and the trainer said, why didn't you smooch to him at the quarter pole? He said, I did, but it didn't get out to the 8th pole.
He was funny. He was
a funny son of a
funny
bitch.
guy. Boy.
And a good man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Who was your favorite jockey?
Well, the one that's winning for me recently, but I think on a day in and day out basis, I was the most comfortable and really admired Cordero.
Now, is that true that you and him shared an apartment?
We lived
and
together.
You lived together in California, and you would be going to work as he was coming in.
Every day. We lived on the top floor of the Hilton, the 10th floor of the Hilton, in a little suite, not very big. We decided to look for an apartment. We couldn't find one, so we checked in the Hilton, and we liked it so much that we stayed up there. But I would be leaving at 3:45, 3:30 in the morning to go to the barn, and he would just be coming home. We could have had one bed. We didn't need to- and he didn't. When I would come in at about 11:30, he'd be getting ready to go to the races, and then when I would get ready to go
And
to
he
bed,
loves
he'd
to
be
tell
going
that
out.
story.
Yeah.
He had some bitch eating cereal at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to go to sleep.
He would take off his shoes out in the hall, and he would come sneaking in. Of course, he thought I wouldn't be awake. He'd come sneaking in, and he'd put his clothes in the bathroom, and then crawl into bed. And I'd say, "Where the hell have you been?"
One of the greatest characters of the game, and
Oh,
a great
my
man,
gosh.
Angel Cordero.
Oh, my
What
gosh.
about trainers? Who do you
I
respect? Who did you respect?
respect too many of them to even name one. I
Name
think there
three.
was just, oh gosh,
Can't name
I'd have
one.
to name more than 3. I thought Lasberger had a great feel for reading a horse. I don't think he was going to win a lot of races, but I think he
To develop a good one.
Yeah, I think when he got zeroed in on a horse, he was with Bold Forest and Affirmed and everything. When he got zeroed in on one, but he was one of those guys that we were talking about earlier, that if he had 20 horses, he might not know what color 10 of them were, but he would know the ones that could run. He would, and he'd come in a suit and tie every day and everything. We became very close friends, and I talk about him and miss him a lot. But I had great respect for John Nehrude. He did everything in the industry. He was an agent and
He was
manager.
much more than a trainer, though.
Yeah, much
A
more.
lot of racetrack.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. He had a hell of a feel. I thought if the Breeders' Cup would have listened to him a little bit more, that we might have been further down the base path too. I love John.
Now, present company included, who are your favorite trainers?
Well, I like you. I don't know. I have to turn to some. If I had to give a horse to somebody, I would definitely do just like the universities do. I would look at the record of your record, Steve Asmussen's record, all of my assistants that are doing good. I would turn to them because I think that those people that get it done are still.
But let me ask you this: here's the problem with a trainer. How do you judge a trainer? What's get it done? Develop a good horse, or your win percentage,
I think to be able to.
or
I think to be able to adjust. I think reading a horse and adjusting. I think a lot of the young guys don't adjust. They get to be.
They train by the book.
Yeah, they get stereotyped. They, gallop, 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 work, walk, jog, gallop, 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 work, jog. They get, you can almost go mark their chart for them.
well, I say there's 2 types of trainers, especially young guys coming up. There's trained by the book, and there's artists. The ones that have an art of training horses. That is what you're talking about in changing and figuring out and developing a horse. Maybe run one where you're not going to win.
Well, they're so conscious of their percentage. Most of the young guys are almost afraid to throw it out there a little bit. I think that's a mindset of a lot of the young guys. They're not
That's what I
aggressive.
see.
They're
I'm
not
not trying to get labels. See, I love riding these 2-year-olds for for Wayne Lucas, Wesley Water. But I love riding grass horses for Christophe Clement. You know, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's different, I think, in that aspect also.
Well, that's reading the horse again.
Sure, reading the horse and buying the horse.
But once, I think that that's self-fulfilling. When a guy gets labeled as a grass horse, every grass pedigreed horse goes to him as Clement.
20 of our world champions are fillies. And you get labeled. I'm not supposed to be able to train a grass horse, but 2 Arlington Millions.
Yeah, I was gonna say
What the
that.
hell?
Yeah, yeah.
And sold an Arlington Million. Oh no, you bought him Marlin. Marlin, I think, was one of your best horses that you did.
That was
one of
one
your
of my
best
first-
training jobs on.
That
He
was-
breaks his maiden for
Yeah.
Kiefer going 5/8 of a mile.
Yeah.
You come in and buy him and win Arlington Million going a mile and a quarter on turf.
Yeah, he was a nice horse.
I rode him and then he took me off and put Gary on it.
That was only because Gary was available. Right?
Gary and I were good. I remember when Winning Colors started getting good, she was over at Hollywood Park with Jeff, and we had the overflow over there. And with her, I finally said, I think she's getting good and she's getting close to a race. Jeff, I want you to send her over to Santa Anita. So he did. And I said, who are we going to ride on this filly? She's pretty special. And Jeff said, we need to ride the kid from Idaho. And I said, who? He said, the kid from Idaho. And I said, who the hell's the kid from Idaho? He said, a kid named Gary Stevens. He's been over there working with her, and he and I got to be good friends. And I said, do you feel comfortable? And he said, yeah, well, changed Gary's career.
No, Gary gives you all the credit.
Yeah, it changed his career.
Winning Colors broke her maiden at Saratoga.
Yes.
She might be the last
She
horse
is the
to break her
last-
maiden and win the Kentucky
I
Derby.
told you that.
You
So
did
you
tell me
stole
that.
my line.
No, he did say that. Winning
I-
Colors was
I
the
didn't
last
know
one to
that.
break her maiden at Saratoga and win the Derby.
On the dirt.
Any horse.
On the dirt.
On the dirt.
I didn't
Because
know-
Big
I
Brown
didn't
won on
know
the
that.
turf.
Yes.
That's amazing. I didn't know
That,
that.
Yeah.
and my point in telling him that is how hard it is on them these days to break the maiden at Saratoga and go on and have a good career. It's too tough. That's why I started leaving my horses here and running them at Ellis Park. And
That's interesting.
my last 3 Derby horses broke or at least ran at Ellis Park. One of them, a couple of them got beat. They were bad rides, but they got beat. And it's just become I don't think there's any tougher race in the world on a horse than 5/8 of a mile, 2-year-old Saratoga, because they run every step of the race.
Right. Yeah, there's no soft spot there.
There's no breather.
That's
no
a testament
breather.
to
And
Winning Colors too.
Todd's, with all of those maiden wins, that's showing up that a little bit too.
Yeah.
With Todd, with all, he's had some brilliant winners
Yeah.
up there as 2-year-olds that have not gone on to be 3-year-olds.
That's a testament to Winning Colors, how good she was. To
Right.
be the last one to do that. That's pretty
But it
phenomenal.
used to be common practice but trainers would train a little different. They didn't kill a horse for first time starter winning.
Yeah,
They say they would they would just want a good experience, get them behind horses, get dirt in their face. If they got a hole in one, that's good. But that was developing a horse every step of it. They wanted every race to get better till it got to the big ones.
I remember, Whittingham's, that was his philosophy completely. Of course, he never had a 2-year-old winner in his life.
But it's so difficult to do it anymore.
Yeah. I remember one time we rode up behind the gate and at Santa Anita, and Charlie pulled up in his car and had the horse come back around there. He said to Tucker Slender, the starter, he said, Tucker, I need the gate card. And I said, well, I'm here to get a gate card too. And he said, stick him in there with Lucas's horse. And Tuck says, okay. So they kick it and mine just left like a scalded dog. And his jogged a little bit and loped off. And he said, Tuck, give him a card. And Tucker said, Charlie, he said he didn't break at all. He just jogged away from there. And Charlie said, hell, I don't want him on the lead. Give him a card.
That's good.
Charlie was king of California.
Oh, was he ever? But he ended up with a lot of proven graded stakes winner. Jimmy Kilroe fed those things. from
Oh,
Europe.
they fed him.
Yeah.
They fed him all to him. But in my
And I'm not denying.
No,
he
you
was
can't
a
knock it
wonderful trainer.
because and Mike has been a little bit the same way. He gets fed to old horse, but they get him to this level.
Sure they do. When he got him, he knew
They
what
took
to do
him from
with
grade
him.
threes
You're
to
damn
grade
right.
ones.
He had an interesting comment when I came over from the quarter horses. They were standing, some guys were telling me, they were all standing down there at Clockers Corner, and a couple of guys said, this damn quarter horse guy, he doesn't know anything about a horse. And Charlie said, well, we better hope he doesn't figure it out. We're all in
Yeah,
trouble.
same thing with Chad. Where they want to knock Chad. One other good piece of advice Wayne gave me. I claimed a horse from Iroquois Park, And a lot of it had to do with the name because that's where I grew up in Iroquois Park. Meanest son of a bitch, that son of a bitch.
Oh, he had a little.
So we're walking out together. I said, Wayne, how'd I do? He won by a pole that day. He says, let me give you a little advice. He'll last a lot longer as a trainer if you don't mess with these white bridles. And I did get a win out of him, but that was about it. And I haven't messed with a white bridle since and not going to. But now there's too many goddamn white bridles. You were the first one, now they're
We got criticized for them. When I first came over, Joe, to Santa Anita, put the white bridles on, boy, we got criticized. I got a couple letters from some of the hard boots that said, turn it into a circus. And, one of the interesting was is Mike Mitchell was claiming horses in very successfully at Santa Anita, claiming a lot of horses, 2-3 a day sometimes, and had that reputation. So now we beat Charismatic over there for 62,500. And Mike tells this story. He said,
now, you didn't know he was going to win a derby when you did that.
Yeah, he filled out the card and he said, boy, this big, grand, shiny thing comes walking in there. And I thought, there's got to be a hole in this somewhere. I tear up the card. He said he wins. He said 3 weeks later, here he comes again, 62.5 again. I fill out the card thinking, I've got to get him. So he said, I'm watching, I just can't get comfortable, so I tear up the card. And I said, well, what were you thinking? He said, I wasn't thinking Kentucky Derby. I was thinking running back for 80.
Do you know how many people have torn up cards on Charismatic though?
Yeah.
Everybody you run into in California when he ran has said I had the card filled out and tore it up.
Well, he's a big grand looking horse. That's
why
how many
did you run
people,
him for
the
the tag?
underbidder on Winning Colors when I bought her. Everybody told me we were the underbidder.
Yeah, there's always an underbidder on the good one. And
Yeah.
Why did you run that son of 62,000?
I couldn't get him to break, as a 2-year-old, I couldn't get him to break 50 at a half mile. He was a big, sluggy, no trying.
Now, how many of them have you ever trained that you were wrong about that way?
Well,
Most of them are wrong the other way.
Yeah, boy, I just absolutely couldn't get him. And so I announced to the barn, I said, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to train him. I'm going to kill him. I said, that big lazy rascal, I said, we're going to just drill him. I'm going to drill him and drill him and drill him. Next thing you know, he started to get rippled and muscled and tight.
Yeah.
And
He
next
just
thing,
needed it.
yeah, boy, all of a sudden he was King Kong.
Won the Lexington, and 2 weeks later
Yeah.
won the Derby.
When I put Jerry Bailey on him in the Lexington, he came to me the next morning afterwards, and Jerry came to the tack room and he said I took a pretty good chunk of cash from the Arabs to ride Worldly Manor. He said, but I'm telling you, Wayne, if I could give you or give the money back, he said, I'd ride your horse in the Derby. And I thought, ooh, that's a vote of confidence. And then about an hour later,
Lexington, was it
yeah,
called?
Lexington, yeah.
yeah, in Lexington. And then an hour later, Pat Day was standing out in the yard, and he went like this, and I went over, and he said, I was second to you yesterday. And he said, I'm telling you, he said, that big red horse ran by me so easy. He said, I think you got a shot in the Derby. Boy, I got pumped. I thought, here's 2 Hall of Famers telling me that I got a Derby contender. Up to that
And that
point,
was a great
I
story
thought
with
Timber Country
with
was.
Chris Antley coming off the layoff where he had retired and him coming back and him to win it.
Well, I offered to call the pin guy in the tunnel at Santa Anita, and he said, "Boy, I got a couple stakes horses on that same day, that I can ride." And he was, I know that 62.5.
Yeah, that was running
He
through
was
his
running
head.
through his head, Of course, Gary Stevens, when he rode Thunder Gulch, he told Ron Anderson, he said, "I'm not riding that damn horse. I rode him in the Remsen. He's a $50,000 claimer."
Told me the same thing.
Yeah.
I had a crawfish boil the night two nights before.
I'm not.
And there's some horse from up in Northern California that was, maybe it's Hollendorf or some of us. He said, I want to ride him. And he ended up winning with Thunder Gulch.
Yeah. Ron forced him to it, and actually Mike Smith was responsible because Mike Smith called, he rode him in Florida, and he called Gary and he said, "You're wrong about this horse. He's getting good, and Wayne's got him good." He said, "You need to come and ride him."
It's amazing how much everybody thinks we know everything. One day, the last day of Saratoga, we were sitting in the room. It was me, Bobby Frankel, Bill Mott, another trainer, and Richard DePass. So we sitting there, and they're packing up. We got nothing to do. We're in late, and we're watching the race. And so we had Richard DePass doing our running. We were handicapping it.
Yeah.
We didn't cash one ticket in 8 races. I said, if they put a microphone in here, we could have busted every son of a bitch in Saratoga.
That's true.
That's why I quit betting a long time ago.
Well, that's
bet
why
with you.
Joe will love this. I just box 7. I don't try to handicap.
You box 7 and pull the arm,
Yeah,
right?
that's
You
right.
like to play a little slot machine.
Yeah.
Does the public follow you to the window, Coach? Follow
Pardon?
you to the window? The public, do they follow you to the window, try to see what you're betting, what you're gambling on?
I don't go to the window.
When they come
I
in?
send my wife. No, if I go up there, a lot of people will follow you up. Yeah.
But you know, we all think if we're in that race that we've got a chance to win, or we'll be.
We better think
Right.
it.
And you better be a little arrogant to play this game at any level.
Yeah, you gotta have some ego or you'll get whipped up on.
And that's what a lot of young guys are coming along too. Trust
As long as
yourself.
you keep it under, you know.
A few years ago, Coach got hurt at Saratoga, I think it was. I'm not sure. Something happened, and you went to the doctor and said, "How was your doctor's? How was the hospital?" He said, "Well, the nurse was cute, and I sold the horse to the doctor, so I was ready to go."
No, yeah, I went and that was when that horse pawed me in the head
Yes, that's
at
it.
Belmont, and they said, "What happened?" I said, I made a date with the nurse and sold both doctors a horse."
He told me a story. He got kicked in the paddock one time, and he had a horse that couldn't get beat. And they got him in the back.
Not only that, we loved him.
Getting ready to go to the hospital, and he takes $500 out of the pocket and says to the EMS guy in the back, "Well, forget it. I'll hold my thing on my head. Go bet this horse and meet us at the hospital." The guy jumps up, runs in and bets, comes into the hospital, and he says, "We won." We won.
He kicked me and really, they had to haul me out of there and we got down to the stop sign and I said, "You ever bet the horses?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, here," I said, "let me get to my pocket here." And I took out the money and I said, "I'll be okay. Just cut back and you got about 3-4 minutes to bet him yet. Get back and bet this horse and meet me in emergency."
That's good.
And I said, we've flown together all over the place. And we used to fly in the back of the Texas. You quit flying Texas, and you started going to net jets or something. But we used to fly with the horses. And when I went up for the Belmont running a maiden, remember that day? And you had your horse. You had just beat me in a maiden race. You had a horse in.
Remember?
And I had Nolan's Cat, and the horse you had they ran a 1.25 mile race for the two of us to run a maiden race. And we both ran, and you beat me this far. And you were going to run a Belmont. I said, "Well, if he's going to run a Belmont, I'm going to run a Belmont with my maiden." And everybody's telling me how dumb I am. You got no shot, no running. One person told me I was going where I belong. Don't listen to what they say. And that was Wayne
I
Lemon.
remember that.
My coaches, Todd or Kieran or Dallas, anyone ever call you about
Oh, yeah.
suggestions or different spots where?
Karen more than anybody.
Right.
Yeah, Todd is, not Todd so much. Dallas talks to me a lot about what you can do and can't do yet, or should do.
Mm-hmm.
But Karen will sound off me. He'll say, "I got this horse that's doing this or that. What do you think?" And,
I think there's nothing better than the knowledge you can
we're close.
get.
Robbie,
someone.
you'd be surprised.
The fraternity, do they call it?
Yeah, we're pretty close. We went to the last couple Belmonts. We go to Todd's house, and we all of the guys, because we're all there.
Todd was almost embarrassed to pass you in lifetime earnings, it seemed to me.
Yeah, a little
And he
bit.
walks up to you and he says to him, he says, "Coach, I never am saying I'm better than you. And I didn't really pass you, it's inflation."
Yeah,
And he said, "You're right." Coach said, "You're right," and drove off.
Yeah, but we get together and the stories are hilarious. I laugh till tears. But when we get together and have dinner at Todd's there, they get to tell them things where they covered each other's ass a little bit, and
Sure.
things that went wrong. And it's funny. I mean, it is hilarious.
Well, you're also a great speaker too. I've been in plenty of speaks before, not board by board, but when you're up there on a podium, it seems like you just zone in and focus.
And very few things are about horses.
Yes, it's about life and a lot
Life.
of other things.
Yeah.
And you can,
I did one in Dallas here a couple of months ago, but I got one coming up. It's going to be interesting. I'm speaking in Boston to, it's a national trainers convention, but it's Hightails, Morgans, Paints, you know, all these trainers, and I didn't know they had an association like that, but I don't know, there's hundreds.
But you
of
know
them.
several breeds.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Clyde Rice
enjoy
told
it.
me. Clyde Rice told me you know more about quarter horses than thoroughbreds, and about Appaloosas.
Yeah, well, we're
You
riding.
got,
one.
you got the best rider. in the
But I enjoy the speeches. It's amazing that some of them you get booked on. I did Mary Kay's Cosmetics, 580 women at their national convention. There wasn't one guy in the audience, not one guy. And then I did Microsoft for Bill Gates in the Atlanta, the Omni in Atlanta. 1,700 executives. That was the toughest audience I ever.
Well, I get you one-on-one in Texas an airplane. That's all I care about. And it's about
How long does
it's
this
about
thing go,
success. It's until you want to quit.
Until
it's about
Dale pulls the plug.
It's about success when you talk to Wayne, about how you make yourself successful. And the fundamentals of being successful fit in any industry or any place you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the coaching mentality.
yeah,
Like you
again,
said,
that comes out, sure.
But you're coaching whether you're CEO of a major company or if you're a horse trainer or if you're on a basketball court.
Yeah, if you've ever taught though, you can't hardly help yourself. It's just like that loading that filly.
Right.
You gotta get out and do it.
Now we'll wrap it up, but I want to ask you: are you the most proud of what your offspring's done and the respect that they show you, or
Without a question.
more
Without a
than
question.
more than even the horses, women,
Yeah,
and everything you've
yeah.
ever done?
I
Is what you've done for their lives.
without, there's no doubt about it. I really enjoy watching them do well. And I know that I made a difference. I think that, let me say this though, I think every one of those guys were gonna be successful if they'd never met me, because I chose good guys to start with. If I nudged them along a little bit, helped their career a little bit, so be it. But they were gonna be successful. I might have accelerated their
They weren't going
careers.
to be what they are. I'm going to tell you, it's too tough. And what I would think you were the most proud about is you can look at one of them, look at you, and see the respect that they
Well,
give.
that makes me feel good, and I like that the most. The horses come and go. You know, you're going to ride great ones, you're going to train great ones, and they'll go, and your life goes on. But those guys are, like you say, that legacy is there to stay.
And you've made their children's lives better. You've made everybody's lives better that you touch. But everybody's lives that Wayne Lukas touches is better. Let's wrap it up.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. All I can say, is thanks to Robby, thanks to Dale, and thanks to
Very
Mr.
enjoyable.
Lucas. Yeah, we like to just, it's promoting the game, and I know you find that to be very important. Dale finds that to be very important. Robby too. We all go out there and do our jobs every day, but at the end, if it wasn't for the owners and the fans, we wouldn't
Two
have
people
jobs.
put money in the game, the bettor and the owner. The rest of us take out of it.
That's exactly.
So we deserve to get, I talked to Leroy Jolly, is a good friend of mine, and Leroy hated the press. And I said, that's true, Leroy, but they're the only portal we have to the fans, and they're what pay our bills.
Yeah, they're the only connection we got. You're right.
Thanks for coming, Wayne.
Don't step
Thanks,
on your
Coach.
phone.
Thanks for being in our presence.
No, I enjoyed being
As
with
a
you.
trainer,
Oh,
you are the best.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I gotta get Robby
A mount.
no, a shirt. Don't forget your shirt. Robby's got a couple mounts. He's riding the winner for me Friday.
No jockey respects you more.
Let's see.
That's
Robbie, you're on, what day is the 2-year-old deal?
Saturday.
Saturday, you're on Cobra.
Based on
Go,
what kind,
write
which
that
race
down.
is it?
It's the maiden 2-year-olds going 7/8.
You heard it, people. The exacta box, because I think I'll beat
You
it.
got a bunch of 2-year-olds in Saturday
Yes.
too.
Listen,
All right, thanks
Thank you.
everybody. We'll be back with the Derby Wars webcast in just a few minutes. So
I'm
tune back in as soon as you
I gotta
can. Thanks for watching.